Well, hello, friend. It's been a while. That's an understatement. My computer blew up. Oof. Yeah, that was tough. That was a good amount of money, too. I got the updates and then it just poof, you know? So that's what happened. And on top of that, the interface went too. So I'm back. So good to see you again. Or not see you, but let's get into it. So I'm Zach Treby. Welcome to Zach Treby School of Drums, where I help drummers obtain high-paying gigs so they can live a great life. So, a lot of people have been talking about Anika Niles, right? And she's killing it with Rush, killing it. I mean, I'm about to see them in August, and I'm really excited. And I gotta say that she's been all the rage, and I've known of her for I want to say at least 12 years. When she, I think it was close to 12 years. Whenever she came on the scene, it was like at least 10 years ago, right? And she's a fantastic drummer. And a lot of my students come and they say, "Hey, how did she get to that point?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's take a stroll through her career." And so we're going to look at, how did Anika do this? What's the roadmap to her success? What's the key? Because most people think that's luck or, it's who you know, which is true, but there's more to it than that. And it's actually a lot easier than that. And if you wanted to, you could get to her point where she got called for a huge paying gig. Now, of course, Rush is not the only high paying gig, obviously. So, that's something to consider. And this is something that I teach not only my regular students that just come here for one-on-one private lessons, right? But also my coaching clients as well. So there's a roadmap to all this stuff. And if, before we get into it, I'm just going to preface this by saying success leaves clues. So if we understand that success leaves clues, then the whole roadmap and blueprint becomes easier. Okay? That's something you have to understand. And, that's something I teach people is about the blueprint. I have a whole gig ready drummer challenge that people come and learn how to utilize this roadmap, what it is and how to do it, and I'm running one next week, starting Monday, which should be really great. And, there's a few people, not a lot of people, but, a good few. So anyway, let's get into this. So how did Anika get to this point? What did she utilize? And there's a whole thing to this. So let's start from the beginning. Here we go. So now, we all know that it starts with playing live. We know this, okay? Before YouTube, there was just going out, playing with bands. Or you would just get your local gig or something where people can see you, and that's kind of what we're talking about. You need a lot of eyes, whether that's a physical stage or a digital stage. So no matter which way you throw it, okay, or which way you I guess throw it. I don't know, for a lack of a better term. There's two stages today, okay? You could be seen by playing live, and you could be on YouTube. The reason why I choose YouTube is because it's evergreen, okay? It stays up there forever when you post, okay? Now, listen. You can see this pattern from drummers, any band or drummer or artist. You can go back, no matter if it's before YouTube, it doesn't matter. It's always the same pattern. They played, they got in front of people, right? And if that's before YouTube, and if they lived during YouTube or were coming up during the YouTube start, they definitely utilized YouTube, right? Which is another pair of eyes, because people are on YouTube, right? It's another stage, because there's two types of stages. a physical stage and a digital stage. Now, how do I know this is relevant? Well, listen. Listen. People make money off of YouTube. So clearly it works. Clearly it's a stage. Same thing with Instagram and TikTok. You could choose any of these platforms and make a career out of it. Okay. I have before we get into Anika's story, I have a student, and right now he's at Fordham University. Long story short, I auditioned him or made his audition tapes to get into Jazz at Lincoln Center Academy in New York City, which is Wynton Marsalis territory. And long story short, he didn't get in. He wanted to go for the summer program, but he didn't get in. But they were so impressed with his playing ability, which I definitely had something to do with, that they sent over his audition tapes that we recorded and over to Fordham University, which has one of the biggest jazz workshops and some of the biggest names in jazz. And they offered him a $500 scholarship to come and be a part of the program, and he's there right now. And man, I'm so proud of that guy. He's great. And the only reason he got that was because he got in front of eyes. No matter if it's auditioning for somebody or and that's exactly what happened. We made his videos, his tapes, his videos. It was both audio and visual, right? So I also did some engineering as well, some audio engineering. But had we never sent that in, they wouldn't know who he is. So look how quick that opportunity presented itself. It was a matter of a few weeks. And, he's young, which is great because he's got massive amounts of opportunities ahead of him, right? Which is great. Even if you're older, you can still have tremendous opportunities. It doesn't stop, So that's just an example of getting in front of eyes. These days we have video. When I was on the cruise ships, I'll get into the Anika thing in about 2 seconds. When I was on the cruise ships, it was before YouTube, and you could just bring those big honking camcorders on the cruise ship, which were the size of a bar stool. I think those things were huge. I mean, just to hold it on your shoulder was just a pain in the ass. Anyway, so we have today massive amounts of leverage. Massive. Okay, we have 2 stages available to us. And guess what Anika did? That's exactly what she did. Okay, that's how she started. Okay, so let's get into Anika. So if you didn't know about her before Rush, here's the story. Okay, she basically launched her career on YouTube, and she did go to music school. Okay, she went to like this pop academy thing in Germany, I believe it was, and she learned about the music business. And certainly, that is a part of it. It's good to know about the music business, and I'm writing a book on the music business right now on how to get the high-paying gigs in the music business. It's not hard, it depends what you want to do. Like I said, there's a blueprint for everything. So if you're one of those drummers or musicians, doesn't matter, that want to learn how to do that and scale your gigs, come on over. I'll talk with you. Anyway, so she launches her career on YouTube, right? In the early 2010s, right? And, that really put her on the map. Okay. And, what was she doing? She was obviously releasing drum videos of herself with her original music. So that was a twofold thing right there. That was a twofer for us. We were realizing, oh, wow, she can write music too. So there you go. She was demonstrating some serious ability, and, around this time, she's releasing YouTube videos, and she does a few tour clinics, and as time goes on in her, let's say, 10-year career, right? Or I should say more than that. I think it was more than that. Right, she started in 2010. She releases a few solo albums, and they were pretty good, okay, and they still are. She does clinic tours, and and she teaches at a few schools as well. So there's that, right? And there's just certain things that if you look at someone's someone's pattern, right? How they came up, right? You can go to any drummer, by the way. Doesn't matter. Any drummer, and you'll see it. And look up any drummer on Wikipedia or YouTube, right? And go through their history of how they did it. I guarantee you, right, if you look at their career, especially as a young drummer, you'll see there's a pattern. They played live. So, speaking of playing live, that's exactly what Anika Niles did, or Niles. And so what does she do? She obviously does some clinic tours because she got some attention, and this is good, right? When you're trying to get attention, that's a big deal, right? Because you are the product, and that's the key. You're the product. It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all, and you start to get a few opportunities, and they're good opportunities, and that's what happens, right? And then what does she do? She gets a Jeff Beck tour, right? And even she does a bunch of other things. She was on Drumeo a few times. That's a big one, right? Eyes. So there you go. So really, to be honest, if we're honest, it was really the digital stage that really helped her. Now, of course, do you need both? I mean, I would argue that you do. If you want to maximize your career, yeah, I would say that's pretty important, right? Now, she was known in the drum industry, right? The drum industry. Not the music industry, the drum industry, okay? How do I know this? Because here it is. Now she's playing with Rush. Let's break that down for a second, okay? So, fast forward, she does the tour with Jeff Beck, right? And by the way, it was Getty's bass tech, Scully, that I think was on that tour as a tech. And Anika was playing drums, and of course that was great promotion for her, because you meet people, and that's another thing, is you meet people, and you should be a good hang. And that right there is what set her apart, because he came back to Geddy Lee and was basically talking about how great this girl is and how nice she is, and so that's a big deal, right? So again, you're being seen, you're being noticed, right? And you can do that anywhere, okay? It takes just showing up and being there, right? So anyway, now, the music industry, right? The music business. Here it is. So now she gets the gig with Rush by way of Scully, right? That's a big deal. Okay. And notice when your average person, the non-musician, didn't know who Anika was. There's a reason for that. Okay. And the reason is because most people don't know drummers, okay? Like most average, your average non-musician, right? My parents, like they had to learn who Neil Peart was, right? So, okay, that's my point is, your average listener doesn't know who these drummers are. Like they're not looking on YouTube and like watching drummers play. Like we are. We're doing that. So if we're doing that, what makes us think that other people are doing that? You know who's doing that? Other drummers. That's who's doing that. All right. Now, so fast forward, she gets a gig with Rush, and notice now she's huge. She literally blew up like overnight. That was like a 10x jump in her career, right? Am I popping in? Yep, yes, I am. All right, I don't have a pop filter here. Let me back up from this thing. So notice she blows up, right? Again in her career, right? You can blow up a few times in your career, right? You can do that. And that's when she got a super notoriety, right? Let's put it this way. She'll never have to work again if she doesn't want to. I mean, she's making millions. She's got to be, especially if she's playing with Getty and Alex. Come on now. So anyway, but that's how it all started. She promoted herself. And by the way, you guys can go check this out. Okay. She talks about that on Drumeo. Okay. She talks about that, like being on, 2 physical stages. I don't think she says that like I do, but that's the key, is 2 stages. It's not that difficult. And if you could do that, and that's why I always say document everything. And what I mean by that is, if you're on a gig, record it, like with a camera. Doesn't matter if it's your iPhone, whatever. If you're doing a YouTube video, document it. So like, it's always a good idea to always have that going on, right? That I do that with all my private lesson students. If they want to build a career, let's say one of my students, which they do, some of my students come to me and they say, hey, after studying with me for a bunch of years, they say, hey, I want to do what you've always been talking about, which is, build my career and get the high paying gigs. And I'm like, oh, that's easy. That's not hard. Now, does it take work? Yes, but it's not hard work if you can literally document everything. It's easy. All you really have to do is network, play live, and record yourself. Listen, if you can't do that, there's something wrong with you. And I mean, if you're like a drummer trying to get gigs and stuff like that, come on. Like, I mean, if you want me to do it for you, fine. I mean, I people pay me to do that. That's fine. Not a problem. But I think you would know better what you want, right? So, but anyway, getting back to Anika, that is how this unfolded. Okay. And she's killing it. And it's funny. There's an argument going on if she's a better drummer than Neil Peart. The answer is yes, by the way. She is. However, I'm just saying in skill. Like if you go watch Neil Peart and then you go watch Anika, you'll see it. And I'm talking like her videos, right, of her own stuff. It's evident that she just kills in technique. Okay. She's a different kind of drummer, all right? Because her upbringing was different. Her technique is different, She came from a different type of background, okay? Neil didn't come from a trained background, okay? However, Neil Peart is still Neil Peart, okay? We're not taking anything away from Neil, because if we didn't have Neil, we honestly would not have Anika. That is obvious. Okay, none of us would be here. I mean, same thing with Ringo Starr. If it wasn't Ringo Starr, we wouldn't have Neil Peart, Mike Portnoy, any of these. So, anyway, getting back to Anika. So that is why she is where she is. She went ahead and did what was necessary. Maybe she didn't have a lot of money, so what does she do? She starts recording the videos. I mean, that's a smart way to go, because it is getting in front of eyes. And I keep saying this, it's all about promotion. And it's no different than my student who is now, because of the video audition tapes that we made in this studio, that is why he is where he is. And it took only a matter of weeks. That is it. That's all. That's why he's there now. I mean, that right there should be a testimony to how easy this could be. And you know what? It's easier for the people that make it a full-time job, And that's what I teach in my gig ready drummer challenges, and some of my other coaching programs that people sign up for, is there's a blueprint, and you can craft a directional blueprint, right, for any gig you want to get. Doesn't matter what it is. And I happen to specialize in high-paying gigs. Now, not all my students get high-paying gigs because some of them don't want it. They want something just a little, they want to be able to make comfortable living. Okay, fine. I have no problem with that. The point is they have a specific goal in mind, and great, and we get it. But I think I'm gonna stop there because, the blueprint should be really simple. Okay, just if you can play live, right? You can network and get in front of people on YouTube. That is half the battle. And there's so many ways to make YouTube work for you, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but in another one I will. I think I'm going to do a bunch of Anika videos on different angles and show how we can get these particular gigs. You might not be able to get like a Taylor Swift gig unless you know the drummer. That's cool. You can, but there's a way to get to that particular arena of musicians and artists, right? Anyway, I'm gonna stop there. So, speaking of the gig ready drummer challenges, if you're interested in taking that, it's online. It's a 5 multi-day online challenge, and all we do is we craft a blueprint, according to where you want to go. So there are people that I will call on, and if you happen to be one of them, we will craft a blueprint, and you'll be on your way to high-paying gigs. It's really a career builder, to be honest. In its simplistic form. I don't call it that, but I probably should start. But anyway, I'm going to stop there because, I wanted to keep this as simple as I could. And I think I did an okay job. Also, if you're interested too, there's a PDF, and I'll link below, on the highest paying gigs. There's a bunch of them. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's available. And please browse the website if you're at all interested, and I will see you in another video.